Hey guys, welcome to the stream. So we're back with our sixth lesson in JavaScript and Showdown as a result. So if this is your first time on the stream, welcome. I'm Hoenn Hero. We also have Lycanium here, also known as Active Name Changer on Twitch. Hello
Yeah.
Leaf, welcome back. Um, and that was weird. We're coming back in here with today's lesson on objects. So, what we've been doing for the past, how long has it been? What, a week now? Probably more since we've had to take a day every once in a while. Is I've been teaching students who have no prior knowledge of programming whatsoever how to code in JavaScript using NodeJS, which is language used to make JavaScript work server side from scratch. So, like day one was a lot of basic concepts to help them really understand what they're doing and think about it right. And then day two and four, we've dived into things. So, day two was basic data types like strings, numbers, booleans, variables. Day two was, or, that we already did day two. Day three was statements and loops. Day four, we went a bit into Git and GitHub because this does dive into open source projects such as Showdown. Day five was another look into arrays and a bit more about what you might see on a standard Node.js open source project. And today is a big one, kind of. I don't know how, if it'll be a big lesson, but it's an important one. And that's about objects. So we're going to jump right into it here. So objects is going to basically be something you work with pretty much at all times from this point forward. So I'm going to start with the concept of object-oriented programming. So I'm bad at terminology, so here's the wiki page. But yeah, I'm bad at phrasing things. But more or less, OOP, as it's called, is programming that's based off of objects, which are basically things that contain data or methods, which are instructions. So data is like the number five or whatever. You've worked with data before and variables. Um, and functions, which we have not got to yet, which is actually the next lesson. Um, Methods are also functions, just another name to refer to functions when they're inside objects, are instructions for the computer, basically. So, like you can't really consider your whole file a function, I suppose. It's more like you can run this. I guess you could, in theory, call the whole file a function, but I'm not going to do that. It's weird. Um, it's a small block of instructions you can run whenever, basically. Um, they're usually accessible through fields, also known as attributes or properties. I call them properties. Some people call them keys. Sometimes I've heard that one. But yeah, so that's the definition of it. Feature of objects and objects procedures can access and often modify data fields of the object in which they are associated. They have a notion of this or self. Computer programs designed by making them out of objects that interact with one another. So yeah, object-oriented programming languages really make use of objects a lot. So you'll find a lot of what you work with is going to be objects interacting with themselves and one another. So yeah, we do need to get this one down. So I'm going to start off with an example here of what an object looks like. Um, oh, sorry, I had a PM I had to check real quick. Continue on. So I'm going to start with a example to help you guys understand an object. So an object is basically contained within a variable. So you guys know what a variable is already. Um, Let me make a file for this. So you guys know what variables are, but an object is also contained within a variable or whatever. However, an object can contain its own data and functions, also called methods. Um, So to help you guys understand that concept, hey Shads, hey Super Mario Fanism, how are you guys doing? Too bad you miss all the time. Nope, you miss Shads. To explain this, I have an image to show you guys because, well, I found this useful actually. You might know what these are, you might not, but they're P.O. boxes, and you find them at the post office if you don't. More or less, there's a bajillion of these at the post office, and you can have mail sent to there or whatever. I've never used one myself. But the concept here is what I really want to get at. So think of an object as like the building that all these boxes are located into. The variable that you're using to access the data is like the door, the front door, or whatever. And then inside of there, you also have to select which PO box you want. So like PO box or object data, whatever it is. Now, PO boxes have a number, so like PO box 52 or whatever. So that's something you can do with an object as well. You could have an object with a field of 52 that contains some sort of data, sure. Not so much a number, it would be the string 52, and you'd have to use a special way to access it, but I digress. But the idea is in objects in JavaScript, you can use strings as well. So you could say, it could be a flag like, I don't know, cost, active, whatever you want to call the variable, just like anything else. You cannot have duplicate keys in an object, though, just like with a variable. So you cannot have, if you have a property or attribute, I'm just going to start calling them all properties, because that's the term I prefer here. So if you have a property X in an object, you cannot have another property X in an object. Just like you cannot redeclare X outside. However, you can have a property in an object, even if you have a variable by that same name outside of the object. So like say you set X to 5, and then you set O to an object containing a property called X, that's allowed, because that would be accessed through O, not through X itself. You'll see when I show you guys the code here in a second. We'll refer back to this. But more or less the idea is, so those are the properties. And inside each of them is a bit of data or a method containing some sort of instructions. Again, methods, functions. Tomorrow, or maybe today if this doesn't take long. We'll see. So inside of them there's some sort of data or instruction. So you guys might be confused, especially since I haven't shown you guys any syntax yet. But does anyone have any questions that they want to throw at me right now, and I'll see if I can answer it, or maybe I'll say I'll deter that question until after I show syntax, depending on stuff. Okay, I'll take that as no questions or somebody's typing. So if you do have a question, feel free to just drop it. If you're doing it on Showdown, please highlight me, because otherwise I'm not going to see it. Anyway, so continuing then, let's get rid of this annoying image and actually do some code with objects. So, alright, so I'm going to show you guys about objects and their syntax. So let's go ahead and set up our file with our favorite use strict and get started. So declaring an object is the first step. So there's a couple ways you can do this, at least that I know off the top of my head. 99% of the time I use this format, which is I assign it to a variable, so I'm going to let O bg bj obj equal a pair of curly braces. Now, we use curly braces for code blocks as well, yes, but when you assign a pair of curly braces to a variable, that creates an object, not a code block. You cannot assign code blocks to variable. If you want to assign instructions, a block of code instructions, you would use a function, which would use a separate keyword, which, again, later. very soon later, but later. So the other way to do it would be using this format. So would be using the new object format. So that's an alternate way to do it. The new keyword followed by object, which involves classes and such, which again later. When you create an object, I'm not sure about this format, but this one you can assign variables to it right away or later. But for now, we're just going to show how to access and set values on an object. So any questions about declaring objects so far? Or anyone want to add something if you're watching and you happen to remember another way to declare an object that I don't know off the top of my head? Feel free to throw things in. Otherwise, continue. Hey Max, welcome to the server. I see you there. Alright, cool. So, I'll take that as no questions, but again, I'm still keeping one eye on chat, so feel free to post even if I missed you. So, we're going to show setting and accessing some properties of objects here. So, there's two ways to access a property of an access an object's data, and it all uses, of course, the property name. The first is dot notation, and you'll use this most of the time. So dot notation is in the form of object.property. So you might have seen this quite a bit if you've looked at the Showdown code. So let me label this better. So let's say we wanted to try to access a value called, I don't know, shrimp. It would be obj.shrimp. So obviously that doesn't exist since the object's empty right now. But we can set a value using either of these notations as well. You can, if you just do this, this would be read, but we're going to set, so let's set obj.shrimp to 5. So I don't know, that represents we have 5 shrimp or something. I don't know why we have shrimp this time, but we do. And then you can also access through bracket notation, which is object bracket and then the string containing the property. So like obj. I don't know, clams. Let's set that to 7. We're going to do seafood today. So in this case, that's the same. This is the same as obj.clams equals 7. And this is the same as obj open square bracket, the string not clams, shrimp equal 5. They are equal. However, each has their benefits. The dot notation is generally shorter and easier to understand. Honestly, it's cleaner. It looks nicer to me, so I usually recommend using dot notation. However, bracket notation has its places to shine, such as, did you know, with bracket notation, you can insert a variable inside of the brackets, and if that variable contains a string or something, it will attempt to read that property. So let's say we had let prop equal shrimp, and then console.log obj prop. This would return 5. Why? Because, so object, we're starting with our object, then we have openings, then we have a pair of square brackets, meaning we're using bracket notation to access a property, and then we put the variable prop in there. Well, what's the value of prop? Prop's value is the string shrimp. Shrimp is in this object because we put it up here, and it has a value of 5, so it would log 5. So All right, there's a lot for me to go over. Give me a sec to mentally check where we are. Yeah, that's good. Okay. So, removing a value from an object, we taught delete originally, though you cannot delete variables that are globally scoped, so that was kind of a mess and I couldn't fully show it. But you can delete a property from an object using the delete keyword. It would be delete object property. So like if you wanted to delete something, delete object dot property. Or you could use bracket notation or use bracket notation because, you're allowed to do that. You can use either or. Um, another use for bracket notation is, let's say your property is a number. You cannot do like obj.77. You're going to get an error, and as you see here, ignoring that one, expected semicolon. In other words, it doesn't expect the dot there. You got a number afterwards. It does not allow that. So if you want to access a value that's a number, you'd have to do like this. So like we set the property 77 on object to the number 77 here. And we have to use bracket notation for that because 77 is normally a number. So we have to tell it that it's accessing a property that way. Same thing with something like true, I believe. No, actually, keywords are fine. It's just numbers. Okay. Alright, so another way to set values in an object is you can also set values in an object when you create it. So we're going to create another object creatively named obj2, and we're going to set this to some initial values. So when we're setting up some initial values when we initially declare it, you'll want to split the braces, the curly braces, apart into, just like with a code block. And inside of there, you'll want to place your key value or property value pairs. So this time instead of seafood, let's do fruits, I suppose. So how about pear 6, orange 3, cherry 42, whatever. So the idea here is you have your key, your property, and your value, your data, your method, your function, whatever. So in this case, we have pear set to 6, orange set to 3. If I could spell, that would be helpful. Cherry set to 42. And after each one, you put a comma. Now, technically, you don't need the comma on the last one. However, that's my personal taste. I will, however, because it's generally, it depends on your thing. Like Showdown wants commas at the end, and ESLint will yell at you if you don't. But this will be okay still. Yes, obj.shimp is a typo. So yeah, that is a typo. I will fix that. Thank you. Okay, I don't have any more typos that I see. Okay, cool. So, and if you wanted to access a value from that, you could console.log obj2.pair. Like that would return 6 because that's the number of pairs you have. And yes, you could set more than numbers in objects. You could set strings, booleans, numbers like we've seen. You could set functions. You could set other objects. You can have objects inside objects, arrays inside of objects, objects inside of arrays. You name it, you could put it in there. I don't think you could put a class in there, though. I haven't tried that, actually. Yes, you can set objects in objects. Alright, so, and you can also just log a whole object to the console if you wanted to. So, like, let's go ahead and log the entire object to the console here. We'll log this one too so you guys can take a look. I got a CD all the way into there. Documents, projects, PSJS class. Okay. And node objects.js. Unless, yep, okay. And it looks like I typed obj3 like a genius. So, fix that, run again. Alright, so, like you see here, so our first log statement in our bit of code here is obj_prop, and prop is shrimp, so obj_shrimp, shrimp, oh my god. Obj_prop is going to give us 5 because that's what the property shrimp contains. Our second log is the whole object, which is, as it shows here, giving us shrimp 5, clam 7. Our next one is from obj2, which we're checking for what the value of the property pair is, and that's 6. That's why it logs 6. And then we log the entire object showing pear 6, orange 3, cherry 42. So, any questions on objects so far? I'll go ahead and take this terminal out of the way so you guys can see better. Honestly, I think I'm going to try zooming this in a bit. Make this. That easier to see potentially. I think that's easier to see when I'm looking at it from the stream page. I will have to look into doing some resolution increases, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to take that as no questions unless that ping is about a question. Let me double check that. Alright, yeah, never mind. That's not important to the stream. Okay, so that's your core idea of objects here. Objects are used to store data and instructions. So, when we get into functions tomorrow, we're going to be exploring how to use things like the this statement, which I'm sure is going to be something to wrestle with. Or maybe we'll do it today. Like, we're literally 30 minutes into the stream. We have an hour, 30 minutes left, and we're almost done. I think we might just do it. But before we do that, guys, we have a new loop to play with now. Yesterday we taught the for of loop, which works through arrays. Today, however, we're going to be working with the for in loop, which works with objects instead of arrays. So syntax is pretty simple. For let property in object. So like this. So let's say we're just going to loop through. I'm just going to change this name. We're just going to leave it as that. I'm going to change the name of this to obj2. But so you have for some variable you want to have changed through each loop, and then the object you want to loop through. So property in this case will be each of the object's properties as it loops starting from one end to the other. So it'll be pear first, then orange, then cherry in this case. It'll be a string. So like in this case, let's log each of the properties followed by its values. So property obj2 property. This is perfectly valid. So what we're doing here is we're looping through each of the properties of obj2. Then we're logging that property string to the console. And if you separate multiple things with a comma in a console, it'll log each of them. So basically it's short for doing it twice with console.log. And the second one, obj2 is using bracket notation to take advantage of the fact that we can access an object's contents using a variable to access that instead of obj2.pair and whatnot. Alright, so any questions on for in? I will actually go ahead and show you guys that while I wait for a question. Welcome back, Kraken. I'm glad you can aim now, but yeah, as you can see here, it logged, just like I said, pear 6, orange 3, cherry 42. So, any questions on objects or for in loops? Because if not, I think I'm gonna not end the stream after half an hour. And we'll get to play with functions. I'm excited for functions, to be honest.
Functions are when you really start getting stuff working.
Yeah, now we get to have some fun, guys. Now we get to get things working. Now you get to do things and stuff and get really frustrated. Or I could teach them debugging. Well, I actually kind of taught them. I explained that a little bit. I should probably teach them more details into debugging, but probably after functions. All right, I'm going to take that as a no. Please teach me functions, Hohen. Okay, let me write a note to self. Note to self, update stream thumbnail after stream. All right. So we're now going to go ahead and dive into functions today. So let me grab all of that. Okay, so first one's simple enough. I already said it actually. Functions and methods store computer instructions instead of data. In other words, it stores code for you to work with. Explain how to reusable functions can prevent self-repeating, default value arguments, returning values, and using them this keyword. Got it. Okay. Let's go ahead and head back to our editor here, and we're going to do a new file, functions.js. Okay, and set this up, and let's get started. So, the syntax of a function is a little different than most variables, at least when you're declaring them outside of an object or something. So, just to be clear, a function is called a function when it's in a variable or standalone, and it's called a method when it's inside a property of an object. So like if we had obj.clean be a function, it would be called a method, not a function. However, they're still pretty much the same thing.
I never knew that was the difference.
Yeah, that's one of the things I learned at least. But yeah, that's the difference there. Also, welcome, Fart.
Hi, I'm here.
Just randomly shows up. Glad you're feeling a bit better. All
I
right.
was a bit busy, but I got here in time. Well, not in time, but I'm here.
Close enough. All right. So I'm going to teach you, there's a lot of ways to declare functions within a variable or globally. However, the first way I'm going to show you guys does not use the keywords var, let, or const at all. And why do I have immediately 11 pings? Okay, never mind. Someone's talking in a group chat. That's annoying. Alright, so it's so simple enough we use the function keyword for this one. So function, that identifies that we're starting a new function. So now you need a name for it just like you need for a variable. So, let's see here. I don't know. How about we write a function that calculates the area of a rectangle or something? Nah, that's boring. I need something better. Something,
Something that adds 2 to the input.
I don't know. It's basically the equivalent of that. Okay, sure. Let's make one called plus plus, which basically increments whatever you put into it by 1. Just because I'm lazy. This is a very bad function idea, by the way. Don't ever use it. Just use the actual plus plus. But yeah, you'll get the idea at least. So the name of it, I used camel case again. Um, then a pair of parentheses followed by a code block, which you open up. So that's the basic syntax of declaring a function. So the parentheses are where you place arguments. When you run a function, you can pass arguments to it. Like if you remember from the focus miss, you used the run move function and you passed an argument of 70 or whatever accuracy you wanted, a number between 0 and 70 to it to make it work. So that's an argument. Whatever you put into it when you call it will be passed to the variable in that slot. So we're basically declaring a variable that only exists within this function when we do this. So we're going to declare one called num, and our intention is that's the number we want to increment by 1. So now we have our instructions. So inside the code block is where the instructions for the function go. You need to write the instructions and return a value if appropriate. Some functions may just do something elsewhere and not return a result. Others need to return a result. Like this one is supposed to increment the value of whatever you pass by 1. It does not have access to the original variable so that you were passed, so we're just going to, it has a copy of it basically, so we're going to have to return a value. So first, let's figure out what we need to do. So we need to increase it by 1. Well, that would be num plus 1, right? It's not, you could do plus plus or something. Yeah, we can just do plus plus, why not? Like, normally you'd literally just want to do this, not this crazy function. But again, example. So that would increment the value of 1, now, of the number. Now, okay, great, but this isn't going to work for what we want. So if you called plus plus on 6 or something instead of equal to x, like, actually, I'll just show you guys that first. I'll also show you how to call a function first, and then I'll explain why that doesn't work. So let's go ahead and set the value of x to this. So to call a function, for example, you can just call it standalone if you want, but we're going to assign it to a variable. So you type in the name of the function followed by a set of parentheses, and then you could put your arguments in. If there's no arguments, you can leave it blank, and you put in your arguments separated by commas. So in this case, let's increment the value of 6. So let's see what happens here. Let's log what x is, because what do you guys think is going to happen? And nobody who knows the answer, please. Come on, you're going to ruin the fun. Anyone want to take
I
a
wasn't.
guess at what's going to
I wasn't
happen?
going to say anything.
I'm giving a disclaimer to make you be quiet. Let me zoom this terminal in for you guys as well. Just going to zoom it up and then in. Just to do a lot of... There, now it's much easier to see. Okay. Nobody's going to take a guess. Okay, cool. Well, I'll show you what happens. Undefined. X is undefined. How, you might be asking? Well, it's pretty simple. It's printed out undefined. It's really hard to see, but it's undefined. I apologize for Git Bash's horrible syntax. No, if you're going to console.log something, unless you're doing an empty string, or whatever you're printing is an empty string, it's going to print out something. But yeah, undefined. So, why? Pretty simple. We didn't return a value. By default, if you do not return a value from the function, it returns undefined. And sometimes that's ideal, like if you have a function that just modifies an object somewhere when you call it. And that's it. It doesn't need to return anything. Okay, sure, that's okay. But in this case, we want to increment the value of num and return it. So to do that, we use what's called the return keyword. The syntax is return whatever value you want to return. So if you return some data like a number or whatever, it will return that value, and it will exit from the function and go back to wherever it was. So the way this runs is let x equal plus plus 6. The computer goes, oh, okay, I need to run this function with the first argument being a value of 6. So it goes to the function. Num is 6. Okay, then over here returns num plus plus. Okay, so I need to return num plus plus. So first I need to calculate num plus plus. So what's 6 plus 1? 7. Okay, now I have something I can return. 7. Return 7. Heads over here. Plus plus 6 has evaluated to 7. X equals 7. Okay, sure, that's doable. Done. Log x 7. And as we can see over here, I didn't save my file. Okay, I'm done. Apparently I did something wrong here. Wouldn't this be, I don't know, num plus 1. I'm just going to change it to plus 1. Could have sworn plus plus would work. Or does it have to be plus plus num? I think you have to do plus plus num if you want to return. Yeah, it's my bad. I forgot about that. I learned about that in Java, actually, of all things. My Java class taught me that. I didn't even know the plus plus beforehand worked in JavaScript, so I'm like, maybe that exists here too. Apparently it does. It's something order of operations related again, and that extends outside of math. So yeah, I changed my code to that. I do the plus plus before I return, which you'll need to do if you want to do something like that. But yeah, basically the same thing. Increment the value of num and then return. A thing about return, once you return from a function, nothing else is run. It's as if you broke out of a for loop. So you can't use break in a function really, but like let's say we did this. This will not be logged. And notice how VS Code grayed it out as well because, yeah, unreachable code detected. It's even giving you a warning about it. VS Code's nice like that. So it will never do that because you're returning. It will never run. Now sometimes you want to, sometimes like you have if this value returns something, otherwise run this big block of code or whatever. Sure, that's fine. Totally fine. You don't even need to stick that in an else statement then. You can just do if this return, and if not, do all this. Because if it was true, you returned and you don't have to run anything else as a result. That's the basic idea of calling a function, declaring a function, and returning a value from a function. Okay, so that might have been a little complicated. Do you guys have any questions so far? I'm gonna, yeah, those are all 4 pings from not an area I need to. Lycan, I muted you because no one wants to hear your keyboard. um, okay, no questions, wow. Leaf, you get this? This is one of the more complicated things, so I won't be surprised. I'm honestly a bit surprised there's no questions. But, alright. Um, let's see here. Brain work, please. Alright, so that's one way to declare a function. So, I believe another way is to declare it using the let, var, etc. keywords. So, let's make another function, and I need a topic for the function fart. Any suggestions? Alright, you think you get it. Alright, cool. Feel free to. By the way, guys, I don't have an assignment yet. Mostly because I'm thinking 20 minutes pre-stream. I feel like I'm forgetting something important. Oh yeah, I didn't do the assignment. So that'll be up like an hour after the stream, or however long it takes me to be less lazy. But yeah, I got an idea though. It's pretty cool. And since I have functions to work with now, it's even cooler. I might make an easier version and then a super hard version. Really make you guys think. Anywho, um, anyone got a topic for a function? Otherwise, I think I'm going to do something silly. Uh, all right, how about we do, I don't know, more math functions, I guess. I can't think of anything good that doesn't involve something that we don't know yet, which sucks because all my good ideas seem to not want to cooperate. Let's do something else here. Oh, that way, no, that function would be good for later. To do sum. I'll teach that in a little bit. You can ignore what that means for now. Okay, so next way to declare a function is using your var let whatever keyword. Let, I prefer let. Let variable, so I don't know, I'm just going to call this calc area equal function and then this. So this is your syntax. You have your parameters in here, so let's say x and y. And notice you can have more than one parameter. You can have as many parameters as you want, just separate them with commas. So this is the same as function calc area open parentheses x comma y close parentheses and then your code block curly braces. Um, so let's, with this, I believe, calculate the area of something is, I don't even know, perimeter I know is the addition of the sides. I believe that's x times y. If I'm wrong, I don't care too much. I don't remember this stuff from math anymore. I don't use it. Um, but yeah, so in this case, calc area is a function that you pass two variables, x and y, and it multiplies x and y together with the idea that it should calculate the area of whatever um, four-sided rectangle slash square. But yeah, so that's another way to declare a function. Um, then methods. Methods are functions within objects. So let's bring back our absolute favorite obj, and we're going to create a method. And we're also going to probably go over this at some point here, the this value. But let me check how much. Um, Actually, I did returning values already. I forgot one other thing. Let me go over. So I got three things left to go over here. Really, that will give you at least your basic tools to work with them. So next, I'm going to show default values. Actually, before I show method syntax. So, like, let's say with num, you want the default. You want it to default to 1. Like, let's say someone forgets to pass a number to plus plus. You want it to default to 1 and increment that, so default returns 2. You can do that like this. So variable equal whatever you want it to default to. Of course, by default, a variable is undefined because if you don't assign a value to a variable, it's undefined. However, if it's an argument in a function, you can assign it a different default value that way. If plus plus 6 like we have here, num will still be 6. That will override the default value of 1 just like that overrides the absolute default value of undefined. Okay, and then last thing I want to do, let me think here, what was it? Yeah, sure. Let's use sum. Let's do sum here. Let's do sum as a method. Let's do our sum example. So I'm going to first show you how to create one as a method. So for a method, declaring it like this, you use the name of it, of course your colon, and then function like that. So just like this. You can also do this actually. You can literally just do that if you want to cut out the whole function thing, but either works. We're gonna do this. PS sign Showdown at least prefers um, the other way. So let's say sum takes up to 3 variables, A, B, and C, and returns them added together. So that's simple enough, but let's say we want to pass the value of an array containing some numbers. Let's say we want to add these 3 together. So one way you could do it is you could do obj.sum r0, r1, r2, and if it was more, it'd be even more annoying. However, you can condense this into an easier statement. I don't remember what these 3 dots are technically called, so feel free to call it out if you know, but this syntax will spread the values of array out. So it's as if it took the array, removed the braces, and just put each value in. So it put RO in for the first argument, R1 in for the second, R2 in for the third, and if there was more, it would try to put it in for the fourth, fifth, etc., even if that function doesn't support it. So that's a useful little trick there. So if you see that, that's what it means. It appears a few times in Showdown, for example. So let me go ahead
What
and
about
log this
what
as an example.
what about the function shorthand?
I did show function shorthand. I
Okay.
just chose to write it like this. So yeah, there's that. Let me go ahead and run this. So like 145, just like our code there. So sum object.sum dot 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 r returned 145, which if you add those numbers up manually should be 145. All right. Any questions before I dive into whatever I was going to do but can't remember? So there it is. This. All right. Yes, we get to play with this keyword. Oh boy. All right. Cool. No questions for now. Feel free to post them in chat if you still are confused about something. So next, I'm going to teach a rather confusing topic. We're going to learn about this, quite literally this, which is a keyword. So, who keeps muting, unmuting? Or never mind. This is something. I gotta say something other than that because it's such a common English word too. The this keyword is used when you have methods in objects. So it's referred to you. It's used to refer to the object that the method is inside of. So it's used to refer to this object that this method is in. So let's create an object called shop. And let's say let's say this is a shop and it's selling, I don't know, fruit, vegetables, something for various prices. And I don't know, cucumber. Yeah, actually, tomato. And it's selling it for 15 bucks for some reason. And I don't know, one more item, watermelon for like 3 bucks because these prices are totally fair and valid and I don't care. Um, so let's say this shop also has a method called buy, and I'll use shorthand here. So buy, and let's say it takes arguments of num corn, num tomato, and num watermelon. So you can specify how many of each you want to buy. Um, or we'll call it calculate cost. So, and in this we're going to want to calculate and return how much it would cost to purchase that many corn, that many tomato, and that many watermelon. And it can be anywhere between 0 and whatever. So we're going to default these to 0 actually, because that would be useful here to have a default value of 0. Because you're buying something you might not want to buy any tomatoes, because who in their right mind would want to buy a tomato at $15? So, yeah. But in this crazy world, we're just going to assume that. So, we're going to do that. So, we need to, to return the correct value here, we need to return the number of corn that we want to purchase multiplied by the cost of the corn. And the same thing for tomatoes and watermelon. We need to add all of those together when we return. So the big question becomes, how do we access the value of whatever product we want to purchase? How do we access the cost? You might think you do shop dot whatever from within the object, but what if this object doesn't have a name called shop? What if it's referenced from somewhere else and its name's not shop? What if shop's not defined or is something other than this object? So that's where the this keyword comes in. This, inside of this function, refers to shop. And I could name it anything I want. I could name it toenails and it would still work. Not that I would know why I want to name it toenails, since it's representing a shop, not toenails. But yeah, so we would want to return this dot corn times numcorn as an example. So plus the rest of them, and I'll explain as I type it out. So this dot corn refers to $5 technically. Why? Again, it's referring to this over here. Dot watermelon times num watermelon. Okay, so this does, I just put the parentheses because they look cleaner, but technically you could leave it because multiplication is done before addition. But yeah, anyways, that was personal preference. No, guys don't have to follow that. But yeah, so breaking it down again, return this entire statement, this entire math statement. We start with our multiplication, so even if we didn't have parentheses, it would be this dot corn times numcorn. So numcorn is going to be a value that's 0 or more, and I guess you could pass negative or something. That's why you would validate your stuff. Yeah, that's more than your hourly wage for a tomato. I agree, it's ridiculous. Um, but numcorn is going to be a number, 0 by default. So let's say it's like 5, and then you multiply it by this dot corn. This, like you hover over, it's going to tell you what it is. Just look. The pop-up even says corn, it's a number, tomato, which is a number, watermelon, which is a number, calculate cost, which is going to have a number of methods, which are going to take number arguments and return a number. That's TypeScript for you, that's showing you information. It's useful. So yeah, so it's going to be 5 times 5, or it's going to cost you $25 to buy 5 things of corn. And if we set num tomato minus 5, we'll get paid for that. But we're not going to screw with that right now. But yeah, let's run this shop.calculate cost, and we're going to buy 5, 1. Actually, we're going to buy none of those. They're too expensive, my foot. And then 2 watermelons. Sure, let's do that. So we're going to, so this should return 25, which is 5 times 5, plus 0, plus 2 times 3, or 6. So it should return 31 even. Let's test it out. Shot, yes. Someone asked, and let me wrap this in a console.log. I'm not going to bother to take the terminal down. But Super Mario Fanism asks, would shop.corn work? If you mean inside of the function, no. Well, I guess yes because it exists, but actually I don't think so. I don't remember. Use this when referring to this object, though. It's much better practice, especially if that variable name ever changes somewhere, which can happen if you import-export things. And yeah, as we can see here, 31 was the value returned. If you meant outside of the function, like in the global scope, yes, you can access the cost of corn with shop.corn. So, like, if I wanted to check what shop.corn was, I could do console.log shop.corn. That would work. So, that should return 5. It'll cut off the decimals when logging because, you know. Also, a thing to so that's how this works. This keyword can be very confusing. Do you guys get that? Maybe, maybe not, kind of, not really, a little bit. I don't know. I don't expect much. I had to go through my objects course twice to get this. And by this, I mean the keyword and objects in general. Okay, there it is. This.corn is calling the object while numcorn calls the number linked to the object. So, not quite. Alright, so this.corn, when inside of calculate cost, this refers to the object. So, this.corn is the same as shop.corn because shop is the variable that the object's contained in. Numcorn is an argument of the function, though. So, like you see up there, numcorn equals 0. That is an argument of calculate cost, and it defaults to 0. So, numcorn exists inside the calculate cost function, and you can access it from within there. It's not part of the object itself to this extent that you can access numcorn from outside. Like, numcorn is undefined down here, and it cannot be accessed with shop.numcorn or anything like that. And if you try to use this.corn outside of the object, that wouldn't work because this refers to something else out here. I'm not even sure at this point. Global this, it probably refers to the global, so I could probably do like this.x or something. No. Can I? Can I do this.shop? No. Okay, I don't know what global this refers to in Node.js, actually. My apologies. It's not like I use it outside of there anyways, so not really important. Or at least I don't feel it's very important. If you guys have a way that you know it's important, let me know. Alright. Okay, any other questions? Alright, so let's see, what else do we have here? Alright, so the last thing I have on my list here right now is explaining how functions can prevent self-repeating. The idea of a function is it's a reusable block of code. So like with our shop example, we calculate the cost of whatever in here. So like we're trying to calculate. So instead of like every time someone does a calculation or whatever, just like if you wanted to process 5 orders down here, You could just use calculate cost each of the times, reducing it, along with a for loop at that point, honestly. More or less, it's a small block of reusable code that you can use many, 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 many times, and honestly do. So, I'm bad at explaining this one, and I'm tired right now. So I apologize if things aren't making complete sense. Fart can yell at me if it doesn't. I
The only thing I would the only thing I would possibly do, and I don't even know if you can do it in JavaScript, I just did it in Ruby, um, is make it so that you could put in any order for the corn, tomato, and watermelon.
in
But
any order. I don't think that's doable with JavaScript. At least I haven't heard of it. I think I looked into that once because I'm like, dang, that would be really useful, but I don't think it's doable in JS. There is an order to things, yeah. So like with our shop.calculate cost that we logged, if we swapped the 5 and the 0, we would be buying 0 corn and 5 way too expensive tomatoes. So yeah, let's not do that and spend way too much on a couple of tomatoes. Um, but yeah, okay. Potentially, I think you can, however, handle excess values. Like we use the triple dots for spreading values out when running it, but I believe you could also like have some sort of like if you wanted to have other here, you could do dot 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 other, and like that would if we put something else into here, um, like I don't know, whatever, a bunch of extra random numbers. Come on. Sorry, I unplugged my mic. Like this, then all the extra numbers after the first three would be placed into an array set to other. So that compresses any of the extra values into an array. So when doing it to pass to a function, it expands it into the function's arguments, and when using it in an argument in a function, it compresses all the things after that point into a array. Hey Games Malk, welcome to the stream. I'm currently just winding down, or potentially winding down, not sure, my JavaScript class for today. I'm teaching a bunch of newer, completely new programmers JavaScript, NodeJS. So welcome, welcome. Today's objects and functions, even though my stream just says objects, function objects took almost no time, so we did two things. For those of you who are part of the class, um, you may be confused by this and honestly probably don't get this completely right now, which I can understand. Um, I'm going to try to write up an assignment after this because I forgot to do it earlier, unfortunately. Just hindsight and finals taking their toll, I suppose. Um, and I'll probably run it past fart because brain not working right now. Um, and we'll get you guys an assignment soon enough. I highly suggest you do this assignment, and all the other ones as well if you haven't, because you learn as you code, really. You need to code to learn. So these assignments will help with that, as well as starting to push into other areas. So yeah, that's why the Help Wanted channel's there to give you some options to contribute to. I will be seeing what else I could fit into that Help Wanted channel. Probably tomorrow. Maybe tonight. We'll see. There's a lot of things for me to do. Alright, does anyone have a question at all right now? objects, functions, anything at all. Anything you may or may not get. You want to check to make sure you got something? Ask it. I'm happy to take your questions anytime, but now is a good time. Let me double check, make sure we're not getting anything on Discord and somehow not move my channels into. Alright, quickly run over what this code does. Okay, Apex Trijack, welcome to stream. Alright, now I'm teaching students objects and functions. So the whole idea of this little block of code is we have an object called shop. It has three properties that contain data, numbers specifically, that represent values, including corn for 5, tomato for 15, which is outrageous, and watermelon for 3. And then a method called calculate cost. We used shorthand here instead of the usual name colon function parentheses, just name a function parenthesis, which does work in NodeJS 12. And we set, it takes three arguments, num corn, num tomato, and num watermelon. Other was more me showing how to use the triple dot to compress any excess variables. So I will go ahead and get rid of that now, just to clarify what's going on here. And so what it does is it's going to return, calculate the cost to purchase that many of each. And of course they all default to 0. So like for example, we ran it with 5 corn, 0 tomato, and 2 watermelons. So it calculates all those values. So the big key of this function is the use of this keyword. And this in JavaScript refers to this object that's this method is a part of. So like in this case, this refers to shop because calculate cost is a method of shop. You absolutely can do that with functions in JavaScript. It's done all the time. For example, a Showdown example, there's a object. Every Pokemon is an object. So, like in the battle simulator, you have your Ludicolo, and it's an object. It contains data like its current HP is data, its maximum HP is a data piece of data, a number, and then has various functions such as one me and Fart have mucked around with quite a bit is one called form change. It exists on all Pokemon objects, and it allows you to make a Pokemon change into another Pokemon. And it's usually used for things like Rotom changing into one of its other forms or whatever. Well, maybe not that. That doesn't happen mid-battle. But yeah, like Mellow and Frolic Song. Thank you for the follow, Rolf R&D. And also Apex Tragic, thank you as well. And we'll get that up here in a moment. Yeah, there it is. All right, cool. So yeah, you can put functions or methods. They're called methods when they're inside of an object, actually. So maybe that's why you didn't know. But they are functions. They're equivalently the same. And this keyword, when inside of a method, refers to the object it's placed inside of. So this.corn is equivalent to 5. That's because corn is a property on shop that contains a number 5. If in VS Code you can hover over things for some TypeScript information. And thank you again for the follow. And his name is
John Cena. Do 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 do.
That
I'm
was
sure you get that a lot.
uh, it took me a sec to get that. It took me a second. I'll admit that. Um, but if you hover over things such as this in VS Code, which I love this from VS Code, it'll tell you what it refers to in this context. So for example, this refers to an object, and look what object it is. It's the same one as shop. Corn, which has a number, is a property that contains a number. Tomato is a property that contains a number. Watermelon is a property that contains a number, etc. And I probably typoed watermelon in hindsight, but it is what it is. Doesn't
You
matter too
did.
much as long as you guys get the concept here. I see Fart is PMing me another code version. Did you want me to do something with that, or?
No.
Currently studying a full stack web development course. Covered all basics front end wise, but haven't really built anything yet. Do you have any advice? Um, Before I offer any sort of advice, I'm going to give a big old disclaimer that says I am a college student who is 100% self-taught in JavaScript, NodeJS, etc. So yeah, I haven't done a lot of stuff, and honestly, I don't even know what you mean by full stack or whatever at this point. Terminology is my weak point. Um, but for doing something, I assume one of the biggest things I struggled with at first was like I had my tools, like I knew what a number it was, a string was, or whatever, a function, etc. But I didn't really know how to piece them together into what I wanted. I didn't really know how to create something with anything really. Um, so keep in mind like a few steps for making a script or whatever you want to do. Have a goal in mind. Break that goal into the steps you'll need to get there, like with, I don't know, I need an example. What was the example I used day one for, or do you not remember?
Uh, for what?
Step two of programming a script. Yeah, I probably don't remember. But I don't know, anything. Break it into steps. Like if you wanted to have, like,
I remember the assignment.
yeah, I think it was a command on Showdown as an example. Like there, yeah, it was like muting someone on Showdown, which is more or less prevents them from talking. It's a mod command, so like I went over the steps. We need to make sure that the person using this command has permission to use it. We need to make sure that the person being muted isn't already muted since you can't remute them. We need to make sure that the person doing the mute can mute that person so we don't have mods muting admins or whatever. And we need to then apply the mute and notify the appropriate parties that a mute has been issued. React, I am not. However, I probably should learn that honestly, considering that the Pokemon Showdown client is currently being refactored in React. So I do need to learn that at some point, to be honest. But yeah, break it down in
I thought
steps, write the code, test and debug a
I
lot.
thought I thought it was getting done in Preact.
Right, Preact cheese. Okay. Tired today, sorry guys. But yeah, I don't do too much client work. I usually work on the server, which is also in JavaScript. TypeScript mostly now, but that's basically JavaScript, but strictly typed like Java or something. Um, but yeah, I do need to learn some more front end things. I mostly just use jQuery at this point. I never did much front end. Um, if you're looking to like make a website or something, I don't have much advice there. Like I've poked into it, but I know front and back end. Like I set up a Node.js Express app and went from there. Well, yeah, that's fair. That's fair. jQuery's a library, but you still need to know how it works. It's just mostly, other than that, I just use JS. Like, I'm not big on libraries or whatever. I'm more big on how can I do this with what I have available. Yeah, honestly, yeah, it is. It would probably make my life a lot easier if I just went and started using some. I just don't want to fall into that boat of, hey, I just use 1,000 libraries or whatever, or something stupid like that. It's kind of hard with NPM though, because it looks like I always have like 40 billion node modules installed, even if I install one thing, like sock.js or whatever, for WebSockets. Yep, that sounds appropriate. I do need to do some work myself for front end. Um, But yeah, I'm pretty sure I explained calculate cost completely there. If I didn't, it just accessed the value and then calculates the cost of purchasing whatever amount you selected. For each thing, it defaults to 0 and returns that value. So like console log shop.calculate cost 502. Me, I'm teaching a class right now for JavaScript for complete beginners. Node.js server side, we're not using any plugins or libraries right now, so it's just JavaScript. It's pretty new. We have everything up to ES 2018 at our disposal, so you'll see template strings, arrow functions, whatnot available rather than having to deal with Internet Explorer or whatever. Oh, it's such a relief to not have to deal with browser compatibility, to be honest. Such a nice thing. Uh, we just need to drop support for IE as a community. I just do not want to bother with it anymore. It's just annoying. Anyway, um, so for what I've been doing specifically, I've been teaching a lot of JavaScript, specifically today's objects and functions. So all these students today have gotten a chance to poke into objects and functions, and those that aren't able to make it now will be looking at the video later and will get the first taste then. Yeah, I'm doing a class actually, like I said. So I normally am a contributor to an open source project known as Pokemon Showdown. It's pretty big. It's a website for Pokemon simulation, and it has about 10, usually around 10,000 people online at any given time, millions of users a month. There's a link if you're curious. Um, I do pretty much anything and everything that's needed. So like bug, I'll look into it and fix it if I have time. Time pending. I'm also a college student, so that eats up time. I gotta write a big old paper tomorrow again. um, but yeah, that's me in a nutshell, I suppose. What year college student? Right now I am a junior, but pretty much everything I've done is non classes that don't have anything to do with my major, so I'm relatively early into it right now. Um, I'll be starting my junior year in fall, technically. I am taking summer classes, so once I finish. Yeah, third year. That's fine. I didn't know that UK used something different. That's fine though. Um, I used what's called CLEP and DSST tests to basically get rid of all my general education things, so I could just focus on my programming classes. They're also a lot cheaper than doing an expensive full class at college, so saves a lot of money too, and time. Well, maybe not time. Some of them, yeah. Others, I had to basically learn the whole thing and take one big frustrating test. Pass fail. So, it's got its pros and cons. It took longer though, but honestly, it saved a lot. Um, I think I've covered everything that I need to for now. I do have a lot more that I want to cover for next time's stream at least. Um, oh, and prior to this, I am self-taught, Kamsi UK. Uh, I have only my only language I've technically learned, because honestly, looking at the so-called front-end development class I'm taking right now, it's like 90% stuff I already know, and even then, 90% of it is HTML and CSS, not even frameworks or anything. Like this week's module is supposed to be advanced JavaScript and jQuery, and by advanced they mean things like for loops and if statements, which is apparently advanced. I don't know. Um, and they didn't even put jQuery in there for some reason. I don't know why they said jQuery, but whatever. At least I didn't see it in the text. I didn't really do any much of anything but skim through it and make sure I know all the topics before I went and did stuff. Um, I did, however, learn Java from the college, so there's that. Mostly the same as JavaScript, the first part of it. I will be doing my second of the two Java classes I need to take, starting on Monday, actually. Which is nice to not, I guess not very nice to only have a 2-day weekend between semesters, but whatever. I'll take it. Okay, does anyone have any more questions? Anything at all, you can feel free to ask me anything you want, because I'm happy to answer questions while we're sitting here. Especially if it's about the class, since, I'm here to help you guys, though. If you guys don't get something now, I can always answer you later. And for the assignment, I will write that up later, because, again, I forgot to do that before the stream. So, yeah. Barely remember any Java at this point, lol. I mean, fair. I gotta refresh myself during this first week coming up. Otherwise, I'm gonna not get anything done. This shouldn't be too hard, though. Like, a lot of it is knowing your basic concepts of programming, and then you can apply that to whatever language you want. You just gotta learn their syntax, really. Like, pretty much every language. I can't say every because I don't know every language, but I'm pretty sure every language has variables, if statements, loops, things like that. So, had an IT class at high school the previous year, another one incoming. Okay, that's cool. What do they teach you there, Games Malk? Games Make? I don't know how to pronounce that. Mike, okay. HTML, CSS, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, PHP, and MySQL. Oh my gosh, PHP. I've heard many complaints about PHP. Have not learned it myself. SQL,
I like PHP.
what did you say, Fart?
I like PHP and SQL.
Fair. I gotta learn SQL myself, honestly. So, soon for me too. Not sure how deep they dug into JavaScript, but we'll see. I'm sure you know at least the basics, though. Honestly, I would encourage anyone who's learned the basics and just doesn't do anything with it to take that and apply it to something. Like, use it to write a game. Like, make a game in your web browser or something. Muck around with it. Have fun, man. If you have questions, Google is always there to help you. Or me. You can bug me. I may not respond, though, because I'll be busy wrestling with TypeScript or something and figuring out how to get some things to work. Anyways, I think we've mostly run out of juice here, so um, we're gonna start closing up now. Unless anyone else has a question, feel free to post if you do. Um, in the meantime, for those of you who are new, thank you for coming in, especially to those of you who followed. Thank you very much. Um, right now, I'm currently in the middle of this class, which I will be going on for the next couple weeks. But my normal streams consist of me doing programming work for Showdown. So feel free to stop by for those and see what's going on in the world of Showdown. Especially if you play Pokemon or anything like that, it should be something interesting to see happen. Um, if you're interested in getting notifications for my streams, follow if you're not already, and feel free to turn on notifications. Your other option, if you don't use Twitch as much, like I know a number of our Showdown users only come on Twitch to watch me or whatever, is to join the Discord, which is linked in chat, or will be in a moment, and ask for the stream notifications role. If you want to join the class, ask for the student role. I ping the student role for class streams along with stream notifications, but I do not ping the student role for non-class streams. Um, Otherwise, I thank you very much, guys. Let me go ahead and find us somebody to raid on our way out. Let's see, is there anything really good right now? Nintendo Switch deving. Interesting. Um, see if I can find someone who's smaller. Trying to break computers. Let me check this one. See what he's doing. Alright, cool. Let's see. Um. Oh, annoying ad. I can't even check what the stream's about because the ad's in the way. Set your title. Game dev, 3D modeling. Interesting. That could work. Um. This could work,
Directly in
yeah.
front, so
Looks
hopefully
like
they show.
something war-based. Why not? We'll go do this. This'll work. Alright, cool. So we're gonna go ahead and raid first level wizard here. Let me start that up. Again, thank you for showing up today, guys. Follow and turn on notifications if you're interested. And we'll be back tomorrow, unless something comes up or students need a break, with another class stream. So, yeah, thank you again, guys, and see you later.